Hello, and welcome to today's lesson. Today, we're going to talk about how you go about determining how much capital to raise. This is a question that's going to come up, and something that if you've decided capital raising, is part of your path, then the next question, of course, becomes, well, how do I decide how much, and how can I approach this confidently and with some sense of process versus just guessing? I need 250,000. I need a million. I need 3 months of runway. I need 24 months of runway. I'm going to break down a little of the art meets science and help you think through this. So again, I like to keep things simple. So why not break things into simple steps? So there's really 3 steps we're going to talk through today. One is the assessment step, which is assess not only the status of the business, and the investment. Status of the business matters a lot because, of course, the stronger a position you hold, the higher a valuation, the more kind of ammo you have during negotiation, the more you have to kind of, again, go to bat with. If you look weak and you position yourself weak and you fundamentally are weak, you can see how your valuation is just going to get hit by that investor over and over and over again. But if you position yourself properly and strong, and again, we're not lying here, we're doing the work that we can, and we're positioning with a sense of story, a sense of narrative, you can start to argue for more realistic valuations in terms of ones that make sense both for you and for the investor. On the investment side, it's a combination of what investment surrounds you, because of course you have a network, you have people around you, but also you as founders, whether you're a solo founder or you have a small team, you probably put money in, or you will be putting money in. And unfortunately, hours does not equal money. This is not the scenario where you can say, oh, I get paid $100 an hour. I put 10 hours in, there's $1,000. I wish it worked like that. But if you want to think about the simply kind of math of it, the more efficient you are, then the less you're investing. So I'm paying for your inefficiency, because if you could just do all that work in 2 hours, I wouldn't have to pay you for 10 hours. So you can see how the hourly investment starts to kind of break apart. What investors fundamentally care about is how much cash you have put into the business to date, what's available, what's been invested, what's in your network. Again, this is a different perspective on your business, because you have to remember, we're not talking to a customer, we're talking to an investor, and they have very different standards than anybody else in the market. You want to identify valuable near-term goals. This is critical because you're not just raising money for 6 months. You're not just raising money for a year. Now, there are some rough benchmarks you want to look at. For example, you typically can't raise money on a Monday and activate it on a Tuesday. There's some buildup, some ramp up to your expenditure. So even if you closed all your money in January, it's going to take you till February, March to start really spending it and getting things on, getting people onboarded, getting teams hired, getting hiring kind of job postings done, whatever capital is allowing you to do, it's not automatic. So typically you want to have X amount of time of ramp up, call it 2 or 3 months, and then you want to have whatever amount of time you need to get your goal done. For some people, this is building an MVP, in which case their goals, 3, 4, 5 months. For other people, it's hitting a certain revenue threshold or a certain customer base. This could be 9 months, 10 months, 12 months. It really depends on your specific business, but notice we're trying to think about how quickly can we activate spending the money, and is there a goal that we're aiming at in, call it the middle distance, right? We don't want it to be 18 months away, but we don't want it to be 2 months away. We want it to be something where the investor is buying a goal. You kind of want to think about it like that. When they give you money, they're buying the next step in your journey, not the end of your journey, right? They want it to be a unicorn and all that good stuff. But what they're buying today is the story you're telling them about what you're going to do in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. So good to focus in on that and let that drive where you pull the capital from, the capital number from, versus, again, $500,000 here, $250,000 there. Doesn't really help you. And last, identify your capital sources, both the combination of warm, meaning people you already know, and cold, meaning people that are around, people that you can Google, people that are, if you're talking to VCs, these are all the public VCs that, publicize their investment thesis and really want you to apply to them. So Understanding these three pieces of where you kind of are in your assessment, where your next material goal is, and what your current capital resource base is, you kind of triangulate all of these. And again, art meets science, and out pops a number. Step one, assess your status. So here are the three big questions that I always kind of ask to assess where a business is. I'm really hitting on three pillars. One is, are we pre or are we post validation? Validation is very simple. Can you prove to me through hard facts, through marketing you've done, through sales work you've done, through 5, 10, 50, 100 customer interviews, through lead lists, whatever is your most compelling way of showing me, I know, not I think, but I know I have something here, that's a good thing. So you can tell if you can't say I know something, you're pre-validation. If you can say I know it and here's the data I can prove it, now you're post-validation. Now, of course, post-validation, the strongest validation is cash. But again, we're trying to level up here and go step by step. So in the early days, validation is just proving people actually want it. Product, pretty simple. Are you pre-product or post-product? It's very simple. Post-product means you have at least a minimum viable product that a customer can use that you can extract value from. Meaning if they're using it and you have an advertising-based model, great, they're using it and then you can start running ads. If they're using it and you're going to charge them a SaaS fee, then you should be able to charge them a SaaS fee. This is one of those, it's very kind of clear binary. Either you can walk or you can't walk. And limping in this scenario, in this analogy, counts as walking because you're still moving. I don't care if it's rough. I care that you're not, again, in this example, not walking, right? I will take you walking poorly, but I just need you to be walking in order to count as post-product. And last is pre-revenue, post-revenue. Nothing too exciting, but the difference that first dollar makes where someone has proven, unilaterally that your business is valuable enough to spend money on, it's very compelling, right? It sends a very clear message to the audience and to investors. Obviously, it's great to have 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 grand a month. But the difference between having something that works, being post-product, and having something that's being used and being paid for post-revenue, again, these sound like little things. They seem so small. They are mountains of difference between them, right? And the right investor sees that and understands that. So you can see the stronger each case is, the more validated, the better the product is. Better doesn't mean more features. Better means works well. It could be one feature, but if it crushes it, that's all you need. And revenue, of course, again, the more the merrier. How strong is our position? And that's the trick. It's one of those, it's not about how weak we are, because again, anybody, whether it's myself or an investor, can find 100 ways to poke holes in any founder story, even the most kind of compelling ones. It's really about what can we do to strengthen our position when we talk to investors? How are we speaking to our past work on validation, all the people we have spoken to? How do we speak to all the present work we're doing, showing current action? And how do we speak to the future? This is a really critical step that I actually don't think I put on here. It's really important when you're framing things. Past, present, and future. I have found this is just the phrase that pays whenever you're talking to most people, but investors in particular. It's kind of like when you're working a corporate job. It's not about what you've done. It's about what you're doing. And when you're talking to investors, it's kind of all three. I want to know that you've done stuff in the past. I want to know that you're doing stuff in the present, regardless of how many resources you have. Show me you're scrappy. And then I want you to tell me all the great stuff you're going to do in the future with or without resources. The energy you want to give off without being, too arrogant is, I'm going to make this happen with or without you. Your resources enable this. Without your resources, I'm going to do that. But I'm winning. And I would love to have you be a part of this, but it's not required, right? And again, you don't want to say that exactly, but that energy is felt. It's palpable. And trust me, I've had 1,000+ founder meetings. You can tell the difference between a founder that gets it and that doesn't get it. How much cash have the founders invested to date? This matters. And it matters both because if you haven't put even the basic funding, such as creating your entity, such as getting your equity issued, such as getting your intellectual property assigned to the company, these are things that are very concerning, right? Imagine a scenario where your post product, meaning your product exists, but it was built by a tech team that doesn't have that doesn't have that intellectual property assigned to the company for some random reason. Your business looks really strong, but you don't actually own your product. Yikes. Like, the person who built it owns it unless that IP is transferred to the business. So as you can see, just because you have a business, just because you are pre-product or post-product, there's 100 little mini things that you have to make sure. Again, this is why we have lawyers. That's why we have finance people like me to show that you're investing the right time and the right money in the right places, right? So that all sums up to, again, a couple grand, depending on how expensive the lawyer is that you're working with. If you're telling an investor, I don't have a couple grand, that's hard, right? And I'm not saying you can't start a business without money, but your work is before you. And I will say that it helps to have some money. This is a big reason why I'm always encouraging founders, don't quit your job before you need to. We want your startup to pull you away from your job, not for you to push yourself into your startup. Because you push yourself into your startup, now you've got scarcity on the brain where it's, I only have X amount of money and I'm running out here and I need to hit revenue by then and we can't afford this little thing. Whereas if you just kept a part-time job, if you just kept that full-time job you don't really love, all of a sudden now you can start to invest an appropriate amount of cash to actually show the investor you're taking things seriously. This is in big part as well, they're going to judge you based off of what's out there in the market. As an example, if you have a big fancy job title, head, partner, lawyer, doctor, finance person, they're going to expect you to put some money. Number one, the minimum, right? In terms of just getting things off the ground and having a C Corp and having your legal contracts, like the basics done. But they're probably going to want to see that, hey, if you're a finance person, if you're a legal person and you can't manage your money enough to put in 10K, 20K, 50K, whatever the appropriate answer is based off your nice, expensive sounding job title, don't be surprised that they ask you about it and are kind of turned off by it. And it's not to say that you can't have a very good reason why you don't have money, but this is where it comes down to, people don't want to hear explanations. I wish they could just keep hearing explanations and then they just kept saying, okay, and gave you the money. But they hear explanations, they say, okay, and they invest in somebody else. So this is one of those, we can have excuses or we can have results. And trust me, all the excuses, unfortunately, from my experience, they're mostly valid. I'm sick here, I have that hair, I have that going on there, this random thing. It's like, yes, it's all true, but it being true doesn't help us. And it being true doesn't move us towards investment. So I always try to push founders like, we got to work through our excuses. There's a great TikTok video I saw way back when, and it's excuse your excuses. Well, we don't have any money. Well, let's find money anyway. Can we get a part-time job, make $5,000 and then invest it? An investor takes that so much more seriously and finds that so compelling versus like, oh, I'm a big fancy lawyer and yeah, I could file the company, but why do I want to use my money when I can use yours? It's like, no, fired, like just horrible. Speaking from the early stage market, that is not the vibe you want to put out there. You want to put out the vibe of, I'm doing everything I can and I'm taking this very seriously and I'm very passionate and I want your support. And here's what we're doing, right? It's a confident plead, right? Maybe plead's not the right word, but it's more of a confident messaging of, again, what you've done, what you're doing, and where you're going. Step 2, identify goals. So while most goals are good, some goals are better. And better means, this is like Darwinism. This is like best fit. Better meaning it gets you the money, right? Your goal is good. And your goal from your perspective may be better, meaning your goal is, I want to change the world. I want to be a millionaire. I want to, change the lives of my employees. Like, these are all great goals. These are good goals. These are the best goals, right? This is an amazing thing that we can do in the world of startups to change our lives. But for the investor's perspective, they don't care about you changing the world. They care about getting their money back plus, right? They want to get return on this. And especially if they're like a big fancy institutional fund, right? A venture capital firm, a private equity firm, or this or that, they are extra mega super focused on the return. So as good as your goals can be, we have to think about what are the best goals that they want to hear that, again, are aligned in your interest. Meaning, listen, if you call it an apple and they call it an orange and it's the same fruit, at this point, we don't really care. Just call it an orange for a few days, get the money, and then guess what? Over time, you can educate them on all things apples. This is not the place where you need to like fight that fight. Major goals should look very familiar, going from pre-validation to post-validation. This is especially applicable when you're doing like really engineering intensive things, a lot of hard tech, because often it costs $100,000, $1 million just to do the validation, because you have to do design work and you have to get really serious people involved. You have to register a lot of IP, file patents, right? Because patents cost 10, 20, 30,000 a patent, depending on how many iterations of it you go through. That's a lot, right? Now, most people, thankfully, aren't doing advanced, business to government, hard tech, IoT, Internet of Things, like when they connect technology to hardware, aerospace. And I've done that one. Like I've helped a business that does that specific thing. And guess what? There's a lot of money involved, right? It's the nature of the beast. But for most people, validation is time and energy. It's less money. Are you making marketing content if you're a consumer business? Are you talking to customers? Again, you should be doing both for both businesses, but are you spending more time as a B2B business talking with, the various levels that are going to be impacted by your product? Because the more you know, and the stronger that case is. Next major goal is product, right? Going from pre-product, like we have all this validation, we know exactly what we need. It's going to cost us $50K. Here's what we're raising. We're raising $75K in total because we want some extra money, some for a little bit of extra legal, some bits and bobs we didn't get done to get started. We need some compliance stuff done. Like, notice you're planning out little specifics, but it's all centered around this critical goal of I need an MVP and I want the MVP to work and I need it to have these features and I'm confident. Notice we're moving up the totem pole in that way. Third is revenue. Revenue, again, for some people, it's pre to post revenue, and which more often is we're going from pre-product to post-product and getting our first beta customers that start free or, discounted and then start paying over time. The other side of it is, hey, we're at $5,000 a month. You give us this money, we're going to scale it to $50K a month. Also very compelling. But notice, again, I'm trying to make it compelling. I'm trying to make it worth giving me the money for. Remember, your business may be worth $10 million per this valuation, but they're trying to see you get to 100 and 100 million from 10. It seems small because it's just adding a few extra zeros and, we just got to make more sales. It's like, now you have to be a whole new person at the end of that. New systems, new processes, new confidence. Again, you've never spoken on a stage before and the stage will feel old by the time it's done. It's a new kind of world you're stepping into, and it's very exciting. But part of it is understanding the implication of if you're taking somebody's money, like $500,000 or $100,000 or $1 million, like take it seriously. Someone just gave you a house. Like you're being given a house to gamble with. Like, oh my God, we should probably plan this out, right? And have goals that make sense, that inspire the team, the investor, and that move us closer to success, not just money to be spent and things to be wasted. And you'd be surprised, but a lot of founders think they have a plan and then you push on it a little bit and all of a sudden it was just hope, not where you want to be. The phrase that pays, again, how I try to encourage both founders and myself, again, I encourage myself with all the same advice that I give here, is we raise money to achieve a goal, which increases confidence we will achieve and hit future goals. Pretty simple. That we'll go back one, again, to make it really dead simple. If you tell me you're currently at pre-validation and I hand you $25K, for whatever reason, you tell me you need it, and you go get to post-validation and you do tons of work and use the money really well, Am I inclined to give you more money or to help you find more money? Or are other investors inclined to see that, hey, they use that first investor's 25, 50 grand really well. They went from pre-validation to post-validation. They have all this demand. Now they want to go from pre-product to post-product. They need an extra 100K. I feel good. They have proven their past results from an investor perspective are indicators of future results. It doesn't mean there's 100% correlation. There are plenty of businesses that look good day 1 and day 30 not so good. But if you had to bet on a business, day 3, ideally those first 2 days went pretty well. And that's kind of what we're showing here. There's an initial movement of positive, of momentum. We're trying to increase confidence. A bunch of little wins added together look like a really big win, right? Everybody thinks you raise $500,000 by getting a $500,000 check. No, you raise $500,000 by getting 10 people to write you 50K checks. Yeah, maybe 2 of them or 3 of them write slightly bigger checks, and maybe a whole bunch more write smaller checks. But on average, you're getting 5 to 10 to 20% per round. So understanding, hey, we got to sell all these people. We got to convince them that our goals mean something, and they should feel excited and confident and comfortable as one can be giving money to a founder. But that's what we want to give off. A note on validation, because again, I want to cater to the early stage in particular, because once you got a couple million in revenue, the business looks different. We'll talk about all of that as well. But when we're talking about early validation, it's all about understanding where you are in the process and realizing that validation is more important than product and revenue. And this doesn't sound like it because you're like, well, Aaron, once I have something, I can go get validated. This is like the founder mistake. This is like a kid, like a little baby talking to you saying like, well, Dad, once I run, I know I can walk. It's like, I mean, yeah, but no, you know what I mean? Like there really are steps to this thing if you do it properly. And you can also make that whole experience of running, aka building a product, way easier and way less painful if you know, son, you do the walking part first, or in this case, if you do the validation part first. That's why it's so critical, because a lot of founders, again, I love founders. I am a founder. I empathize. They are thoroughly convinced of their own genius, right? They're thoroughly convinced, like, of course, it's so obvious. Like, of course I'm right. It's like, well, maybe. Like, probably not, but maybe. It's probably the best kind of way I would assess that from like a statistical basis. But what it means is you have to take, you know, the time to understand this is a high risk business where 90% plus fail, right? Like that's a big deal. If anything at a 90% failure rate in your life, you would get rid of it. You wouldn't invest $5 million in it. I don't care if it was the dog chew toy, you would get rid of it, right? It's like, okay, so if that's the level of risk we're talking about, shouldn't we then have an equal and opposite focus on de-risking that through validating that, through proving it, building demand? How different is your validation if you have no clicks and no website signups, nothing, to one that has a few hundred people following on Instagram, to one that has a few thousand registered or a few hundred registered emails, to someone that has a few hundred individual interviews, to somebody that has letters of intent, which are non-legally binding, basically legal looking documents that say like, we agree to work with you on these conditions at some point in the future. If you show it's not binding, they can always, pull out, but notice how much more compelling that is. Notice how much stronger you would feel if you were raising money to build your B2B, SaaS business. And if you had 50 customers and 50 LOIs, and if you did the math on it, it's $100,000 a month in recurring revenue. Like, yeah, you're excited and you can go tell that story to investors in a far more compelling way than, yeah, we know they're going to love it. It's like, do you really? Because unless you can show me the names of the people that do love it, you think they'll love it. You do not know they'll love it. Validation means real demand. Real demand means sales, and sales means cash. This is our value chain. And again, you can subdivide it 100 different ways. Real demand equals product equals the right product. The right product equals good usage. Good usage means people actually like value the system and get like, there's a lot to it, but fundamentally we want to validate because we want demand. We want real demand because we want to make real sales, not fake sales. No monopoly money here. And we want real sales to turn to real cash, which means they like what they're getting. Remember, you can close them on a Monday and they can fire you and close the contract on a Tuesday because they don't like what you offered. They didn't like the onboarding process. They didn't like something. So again, the job isn't done when it's validated. The job isn't done when you have demand. The job isn't even done when you make the sale. The job is done over time, day by day, earning it by providing value to the customer and getting, money or value in exchange. My kind of general mindset at the early stage, and remember, I'm a product guy. I love building things. Like building things is fun. Building things is how you make, things better, whether it's, the life or the world. You got to build things, right? But what it comes down to is, for me, what I've seen work the most and work the most efficiently for founders, specifically at that pre-seed, seed stage, right? Early product, maybe early validation, whatever. You want to spend as much time on product as necessary, meaning you only do what you need to. It's driven by external force. Like, we need to fix this because they need that. We need this to enable that. We need this. Not I want this. Not wouldn't it be cool. Not won't it be nice. It's like, no, it won't. The customer will tell us what's nice and we'll listen very attentively, right? Doesn't mean you listen to every customer. Remember, we're listening to the customers in aggregate, but it's more than just, hey, I think it should be this. It's like, well, respectfully, who are you? You've got I'm a CEO of things and I've done, it's like, just because you're the CEO, like, I don't care. The fact that the customer's opinion matters. Yes, you can disagree with them, but it's like, okay, disagree and don't have sales. Like, I don't know what to tell you, right? This is a relationship, and you can either try and find a new customer that works exactly as you want, or you can adjust yourself to make the best out of every customer, again, within your target market that you find. Then the second part of that equation, right? As much time on product as necessary, as much time on demand generation as possible. You're never going to be sad you have one more person looking to onboard. Your investor's never going to be upset with you. It's like, oh, your lead list is getting too long. It's like, ain't gonna happen. It's just like, that's not how business works. There's no scenario where if I doubled your sales, you'd be going, I don't know, I'm just more stressed out. I'm not sure what we should do. But I bet if I half your sales or if I half your product, whatever, it's like, oh, you'll be hurting. You will be hurting so bad. But notice, sales changes your mood quick. Products, if you did half as much product work, okay. If you did double as much product work, well, if you double as much work and then we don't end up selling it, or we run out of money because we didn't do sales and we wasted it all on product, don't be surprised when the decision you make has the impacts that you should expect. It's like, we invested all the time in product, not in selling and getting the product in the hand of customers. And you're telling me the customer didn't actually like what we wanted. It's like, yeah, we didn't talk to them. It's like, if you don't talk to your girlfriend, how do you know what she's like? Like, you can't be shocked that you never talked to her and then you don't know something. It's like, it's on you. You weren't paying attention. It's kind of the nature of the beast, right? Step 3, identify capital sources. As I said, warm intros are preferred, but cold do work. You just want to set the expectations accordingly. Meaning, if you are someone that comes from a rich background, right? It could be that you have a lot of rich friends. It could be you have a lot of friends that are poor, but they have good networks. The other side of it is that you could come from a poor background, meaning whether you don't have any money or you don't have a network or your network doesn't have any money. Again, there's a horrible Punnett square here of where you sit in the ecosystem, and it's just about maximizing where you are. There's a lot of people that have great networks, that have a lot of money, that they have a horrible product idea. They have no idea what they're doing. Even if they raise money, they're going to waste it. Like, on paper, they look so successful. But again, I've been in the game long enough to talk to these people. 3 years later, they're back at their old job because their business didn't work. Because of course it didn't. They didn't do anything right. It's like, surprise. But if you go into this and go, hey, again, let's just assume middle of the road. I have some connections. Some of them may be relevant. Some of them may be not. Some may have some money. Most may not have a ton of money. I'm assuming none of you have a rich aunt or uncle that's going to like hook you up with a couple $100K. You could, in which case, great. I would still use the same strategy. This is one of those where just because there's more resources doesn't mean I would act differently. I would actually be more cautious because resources mean a lot of resources for problems. You are really cautious about marketing when you only have 50 grand in the bank. You're not cautious about marketing when you have a 500 grand marketing budget. And you know how easy you can waste 50 grand in a 500 grand budget? Really easy. Do you know how much better you probably would have been if you had 100K, not the 50K to scrape by, but maybe a little extra, the 75 or 100K, and then you really work to try and learn from it? It's like, yeah, now when you have a $250,000 or a $500,000 budget, it means something. You can do something with it. This is all about setting expectations. And the big thing I try to think about is I want medium-sized goals. So it's like, I don't want to go from pre-product to 100 million in revenue. I want to go from pre-product to post-product. I don't want to go from post-product or, pre-revenue to 50K in revenue. I want to go to the first 50 customers if we're B2B, or the first 10,000 customers if we're B2C. I want to set a benchmark that is reasonable for me to achieve, that I can literally, from a time and dollar and just person perspective, afford. If you don't have the skills to service 100 million people, you're not going to be able to service them. I mean, I wish it were simpler than that. It can't be made simpler than that. But if you focus on your niche and you focus on where you are and you set the expectations of, hey, it's really only going to cost us 50K to build this MVP that we need. We really only need these 3 features. And if we really only need 50K for just the tech, let's again, and we'll talk about how you actually set all these numbers appropriately. I'm just doing some rough math. Let's just assume you double it for everything else, right? So you need 100K conservatively, right? Or let's just call it rough. It's like, perfect. Well, that means if you needed to get 10 checks, the way I always try and do it is divide by 10, because that's on average what you're targeting. Maybe some people are more, often people are less, but 10% is kind of a good whole number. If you're raising 100K, that's 10 checks, 10K. Well, now you go from thinking, I need a one rich friend that has 100K they can give me, to, do I know 10 people with 10,000 extra dollars that really believe in me? Even if you have a pretty lukewarm network, you can probably find 6 that say yes and make 4 new friends, whether it's 4 through those 6 people, or you start talking to cold people, you start networking. Again, maybe you use the warm relationships where you get 5, 10, 20, 50K committed to go talk to cold relationships, and where one day they wouldn't have been interested because there was less validation. Notice getting investment, getting interest from other investors validates your round. It's kind of little sub-validation. So if you have 5 friends and family, they each give you 10K, you have 50K of the round covered. Now you've got another 50K that you need. You go talk to some investors. It's such a compelling story to say, help us close out our round versus be one of the first or the first investor in our round. This is important because you just want to be realistic to where you are and not set a goal that requires 500K when your network can only support 100. When the proper strategy, again, little steps to build momentum. What if you set a goal that only cost 100K, you achieved it, and then right after you achieved it, or as you're achieving it, instead of raising $500,000 to start, you raise the 100, then you go raise 3 million, because now you've got so much momentum, more people want to give you money, and old investors want to double down. Like, you're capitalizing on momentum, on traction, on demand, not just on hope and storytelling. 50% luck, 50% skill. The luck is how you're born, right? And I mean like the circumstance. Nobody can control if your parents are rich, or you're, a third aunt twice removed left you a fortune, or if your buddy is a billionaire. We can't do any of that, right? You just kind of are who you are right now, and welcome. But that doesn't mean it's the end of the story. The luck is where you start. The skill is what you do with it. And remember, goals can be really powerful that don't take a lot of money. If your MVP costs 50, can we get it to 30? And then if it's 30 and we only need an extra 30, now we went from a 100K raise to a 60K raise. Now we only need 6 people to say yes. Maybe we couldn't have gotten the 10, but maybe we can scrape by the 6. This is that I will win by any means necessary energy, and it is very compelling. At this stage, especially, again, doesn't even matter, honestly, if you're post product or even early revenue, because until the business can really sustain itself, they may be investing in the business. If there's a product, the business, or they may be investing in like the idea of the business if there's validation. But if you were to like really scrape all the dirt away, what they're really investing in is you. And they know it and you know it, because if you were to just leave the business tomorrow, the whole thing collapses, right? So the money they're giving is investing into you as an individual by way of the business, fundamentally. So understanding this, it goes to show that it's not just about selling that the business is solid, which is the validation work and the product and the customers, but that you're solid. You're someone that shows up, someone that can manage money, someone that can get things done, someone that doesn't make excuses, that even when they encounter a hard struggle or an impasse, they go around it, they go under it, they blow it up with dynamite, they do something, right? Again, we want that hunger. I've mentioned this, the basic, again, mental math. This is art meets science, because you want to get the round done no matter how many investors come in fundamentally. But if you're looking for, well, how do I think about it? I always chop it into 10, and that range in my head is 5 to 20%. If people want to invest more, I know people that want to take 30% of the company, 50% of the company, and that might be a little too much. But typically, each investor's coming in with 5 to 20% of the round. And your round typically is 5 to 20% of the amount you raise is 5 to 20% of your valuation. So to give you the easy idea, if you said, Aaron, I want to raise $100,000, I would go, great. If we assume the midpoint, just 10% for the sake of ease, 10%, okay, the total in which 10% is 100,000 is a million, right? A million times 10% equals 100,000. So what we're saying is your business, you're valuing it in this negotiation at $1 million, because that's what 10% buys. $1 million, I will tell you, I've never met a business, any business, you could sell pet rocks, that is worth less than $1 million. Because any business can make 200-300K, and any business can be worth a couple times revenue on average. Again, I'm saying any, let's call it 85-90% of them plus, which is more than likely you. And what that means is, okay, now if we're looking at, I really only want to give away 5 to 20% of my business, because remember, you're going to be doing 1, 2, 3 rounds of this. If you give away 20% of your business 3 times, that's 60% of your business fundamentally, right? So this is why we want to aim for that 10%, 15%. I try not to sell 5%. You can, but if you're only selling 5%, how high is your valuation, or how little money you're raising, right? Because if it's $1 million valuation and you're raising 5%, that's 50 grand. It's not to say you can't do a lot with 50 grand, but can you really do what you need to do with 50 grand? Or is your valuation that compelling where you can justify $1 million if you only need 50 grand? I think you can, but notice there's a relationship, a ratio here where, is it interesting to the investor to own 3% of your business, to own 4% of your business, or do they need to own 5, 6, 7, 10, 15%? Again, art meets science. The science is we don't want to give away too much. We want to keep within these bands. The art is, what does this investor want? What's their unique focus? Do they care more about a title? Do they care more about being an investor? Do they care more about how much they need to own? Do they care more about their return? Because if they're like, well, I just need 10 times return. It's like, oh, well, if you own 5% at $1 million, we can definitely, based off our financial projections, we see that we're going to be hitting 100 million. So that would mean 100x. You should feel totally confident. And then they're convinced. And again, I'm simplifying because this is asked in a lot more complex ways. Again, the nature of talking about your business. But fundamentally, you're breaking it down and going, where is money in my network? Where is a goal that I think is worth achieving? And how much of my business can I afford to give away? Because if you go, hey, this goal's worth achieving, it's 500,000. It's like, great. Well, if you have no revenue and you're saying you need to raise 500,000, and we're saying the lowest, cheapest business they could ever be would be worth $1 million, $2 million, whatever. Let's just use $1 million for the sake of ease. You have to sell 50% of your business to get your $500,000. If I get into this conversation, and I have gotten into this exact conversation with clients, I go, is there a goal that's worthwhile at 100K or 200K? What does 1 to 200K buy me? If I was to hand you that money right now, what do I get? What could you do? And if that goal that they pop out with, which again, I've done this a long time, usually they pop out with something pretty good, then we set that goal. Because now at a minimum, imagine if we're raising 500K and we have 200K in commitments, we're not even halfway done. Like we're just starting this race. Why would we do that if there's a goal that's really worthwhile to do at 200K? Because now we get to be done with this raise all the sooner. Now, instead of selling 50% of our business at $1 million, we're selling 20% of our business. And the show goes on in a way that's, good, that benefits you, that's aligned with the investor. And there we go. So I know I wanted to give you, again, some hard rules, some soft rules, and we're going to break down. Again, I'm going layer by layer, step by step with all of these. So if it feels at all high level, it shouldn't, because we went into some kind of good details here, but it's going to get even more detailed. And I'm going to break down how we think about these things and how we budget for these things. But I just want to give you a lot of the fundamental building blocks that not only you can use based off just this conversation we've had now, but in future conversations and based off all the other videos, on the channel so far. Please review those. All that work and all the other videos before this and probably preceding this or, after this, they contribute to the narrative you tell within this. They tell how much money you need to get to a goal. They tell how good your valuation is. They tell what a timeline looks like. Is this a 3-month goal, a 6-month goal, or a 12-month goal? But we want to make sure that however you're doing it, we're aligning our interests with our investor and we're making sure that there's a deal worth doing.